Hi, and welcome back. Here we are revolutionizing news with your non party affiliated host. That is me, and an open platform of discussion. Here we have four political parties today. Help us grow. Smash that thumbs up button. Join the movement. Subscribe today. And if you want to participate, put your answers to the topic questions in the comments below. And let's hear from our guests. Kyle, today is the 1 year anniversary of our 15 days to slow the spread. How do you assess the policies of the lockdowns and other non-pharmaceutical interventions that they had a year later? Was the cost of the lockdown worth the benefit to save the lives?
So I definitely think that the answer is probably not. We're looking at data that's probably looking at the global world poverty is probably going to go up by a couple million. I mean, millions of people probably go without food because of the loss of productivity. I think we'll be paying for this for perhaps the rest of our lives, shutting down the economy. This is what happens when you sell safety for your freedoms, is you end up not doing you only live once. And while we should all take the precautions that we think are necessary from our communities, from talking to ourselves individually, this has gone on well, and the severity of SARS-CoV-2 has been overstated. It is terrible, but remember, coronaviruses make up the common cold. They make up a common cold. 15% of the common cold is made up of coronaviruses. We are going to be combating those forever. They haven't gone away. They're not going away. SARS-CoV-2 is not going away. We're going to have to develop herd immunity. Over time, those numbers will go down. Just like if you look at the evolution of these viruses, when they're first introduced into the population, of course, they're highly deadly. And then over time, of course, we adapt. So the first go around, yes, is very deadly, but we cannot shut down everything about our lives because people die. People die in every aspect of life. We can't decide not to drive our cars because people die, or fly our planes because people die, or jump out of airplanes for fun because people may die. No one can gauge your risk better than you can, you the individual, because only you can weigh your trade-offs in life, what you're seeking to do. I understand that there's this argument of externalities that, you're hurting someone else, but private property completely mitigates all of that. If you want to go into Walmart, they'll have their mask policy. If they want a mask policy, there'll be plenty of places to go to where they will have your policies, your safety protocols that accommodate you as an individual. And some people, that could be hazmat suits. Some people might want to store, hey, give me hazmat suits. And if enough people get on board with that, the market will be forced to do what the customers want to do. But we haven't gone that route. We've gone the route of big government.
Kyle, we got to move to Austin. Austin, were the lockdowns worth it, worth the benefit of saving lives? What do you say?
I believe they were. I've never really understood the American logic of my personal freedom, my personal right. I think that it's a strange argument to come from. What is your freedom exactly you're protecting? Your freedom to catch a deadly
it's trade-offs.
and contagious virus. So we've seen countries that are not big government totalitarian regimes, such as South Korea, and that one's debatable, depending who you ask. South Korea, Taiwan, New Zealand, Australia, they have gone into full lockdowns, and they have stopped the spread. The People's Republic of China had literally no time to prepare for a global pandemic, and they have been under 100 cases for 1.2 billion people for the past 8 months. They have told everyone it took them 6 days, or just about 6 days, from the first infected person in Wuhan, China, until they alerted the World Health Organization that there is a possible pandemic. It took the US 6 weeks for the swine flu pandemic, H1N1, to do that type of thing. So I believe the United States had ample time to prepare. They just chose not to do it.
Rocco,
well, the government was heavy-handed in this whole thing. What did the government do? What could the government have done differently other than an earlier response? Because we did the lockdowns, we did the mask mandates, and if you look across the board, those do not seem to have any impact. Could it be that Korea, these other countries, their citizens are different, their health is different, you're comparing apples and oranges? That's a possibility.
I mean, he does bring up a point, Austin. I tagged all of you in a very heated tweet of facts from the CDC. The CDC said 8 out of 10 Americans that were hospitalized were overweight or obese. So he does bring up a point that, is it our diet? Is it our health? Are those things that exacerbated that? And if it was or was not, did the lockdowns help those particular people?
And again, that's all an aside, because ultimately there's other things that kill you. Poverty is a real killer. We've lost productivity. That's going to kill more people than SARS-CoV-2 ever will.
Well, so I think that just on the original question of whether or not the mitigation efforts work, I think that if you look at the statistics, it is emphatically clear that they did not work. And all you have to do is take a look at hospitalizations per capita due to COVID-19 right now. Who is the number one state right now in March as we speak? It's the state of New York, with 246 hospitalizations per million. A very small number, by the way, a number that I don't think that any reasonable argument can be made that we should be concerned about. But number one right now is New York. Number two is DC. Number three is New Jersey. Now, I will say number 4, 5, and 6 are all red states. So it's not like this is just a blue state thing. But the point is that if masks worked, if lockdowns worked, if closing businesses worked, if capacity restrictions worked, then New York, New Jersey, DC would not be the 3 largest states for hospitalizations per capita right now. You wouldn't have a situation right now where there is more spread in New York State than there is in any other state in terms of number of cases. And you have the same number of cases per day right now that you did in April in New York. New York is a state where we have, I believe it was 86% mask utilization, according to IHME. We're one of the most masked states, one of the most locked down states in the nation, and our spread has not been impacted much positively at all. You contrast that with a state like South Dakota, where not only is there no mask mandate, people genuinely do not wear them. You have businesses that are open, which allow you to have the option. And the result is relatively similar outcomes to their neighboring states. I mean, yes, they had, I think they were 9th in total deaths per million. But if this was supposed to be something where, like Fauci said at the beginning of this pandemic, that they were going to have 10,000 people in their hospital if they did nothing, and then they ended up doing nothing and they had 600, I don't see any reading of the facts that can say that any of this was anything but the biggest public policy failure in all of American history. All right, maybe since slavery. I'll give slavery the edge over the COVID lockdown. But since slavery, biggest public policy failure in American history.
Rez, was the cost of the lockdown worth it to save lives?
Yeah, so like with everything, we need to look at things with the facts and nuance. So let's revisit a year ago. So 1 year ago, we were told that we could slow the spread, but the problem is that this was a failure from the top down. We had an administration and we had a government that was not clear with the American people. We had a president that said over and over again.
Wait. There is a very famous interview with Dr. Fauci this time last year that he said, not Trump, not anybody else, but he said masks aren't necessary.
So, yes, and there's context with that, because I know exactly what the interview you're talking about, and I'll let me get to that first, and then I'll get to my point.
Perfect.
He said within context, he said masks are not necessary right now, but it can be necessary in the future, because at first people were buying up masks in bulk. Okay, we didn't have enough because there was a shortage of mask supply for healthcare workers. So that's why they said, it's not masks are not necessary for the general public right now, but it may be. There was a New York Times study that said if the Trump administration, because he knew how dangerous the virus was, he talked about it with a famous Bob Woodward. Yeah, he talked about it with Woodward over the phone, how this virus is so dangerous. He knew how dangerous this virus was back in January. Had the Trump administration told the American public to wear a mask, we could have saved 85,000 lives. if we lived in a under a libertarian ideology where people could just do wherever, the number of people who have died would have been over 2 million, not 500,000. You know, and that's the thing. So to the fact that the mask saved lives. Hold on, let me finish.
So there's no
the mask.
Yeah, finish.
Yeah, finish, Rez.
The fact that the mask saved lives is a success to an extent, but at the same time, this was still a failure by the Trump administration, by the Trump government, because we were taking steps to flatten the curve, and then all of a sudden, Trump went around telling people, open up the states. You had Florida living like it was 2019. You had all these other red states that were acting like there was no pandemic. Whereas states like New York, New Jersey, those states, yes, they are blue states, but there are also states with high density, with high population, and with travel coming in and out. Because the Trump administration never shut down interstate travel or airplane travel. So yes, those states with high population are going to be more affected compared to a state like South Dakota, which is a flyover state. Like, not that many people are living in South Dakota compared to New York, compared to New Jersey. I don't understand why people don't point to states like Virginia with a Democratic leadership, Democratic control, and Virginia took control of this virus pretty well. Michigan had success. Massachusetts had success. You know, so again, facts matter, and we got to look at this with some kind of nuance if we're going to make informed opinions about this.
Kyle, I'm gonna let you respond. I see you chomping at the bit right there. But Austin, do you agree with Rez? Do you agree with Kyle? I mean, if somebody's looking to vote Green Party, maybe they're fed up with the Republicans, Democrats, in particular this issue. The 15 days to slow the spread. We're a year out of that. Where do you land, and what are your thoughts on us moving forward?
The United States was the only country in the world to make the virus a political statement. While the United States ruling two parties were arguing about, is this a blue state, is this a red state, what are they doing? Other countries with functioning multi-party democracies were eliminating the virus. New Zealand, for example, didn't have one solid COVID case for like 3 months in their country. So it is a showing of our political system and our very fractured political life in the United States, to where we can't even fight a virus without us saying, oh, is the virus red? Is the virus blue? We had no service to the people. We didn't have any government attempt to help the people up until some shams that they pulled off as universal basic income. We have plenty of factories in Ohio, in Youngstown, in Cleveland, that are abandoned, that could have been repurposed to create good quality N95 masks. What's the use of masks if people don't know how to use them, if they're not going to wear them properly, if they're going to wear them around their chin, if they're going to put them over their face, So there was no education, there was no preparedness. For the longest time, we were calling it the China virus. We were saying that, it only affects Chinese people. Oh, don't worry about it, it's over there in China. We were disregarding the city of Wuhan's quarantine policy and evacuating Americans, bringing them back to the United States, to where they didn't even have to quarantine at all. They just came back from Wuhan, boop, off the plane, go, have fun. There was no quarantine policy at all. When we knew there was a 2-week incubation period for the virus, how is the virus spread? The virus is spread through water droplets from your respiratory system. So when the virus cannot travel by itself,
to me, like, you understand.
We don't know how
and we have learned a lot.
Yes, we do.
We have learned.
No, we do not. No,
the Chinese CDC, Korea CDC, Taiwan CDC, Japan CDC, all of these countries that were hit with the first wave of coronavirus that had literally no preparation time said it spread through water droplets. And the best way to avoid it is by wearing a face mask, social distancing, and washing your hands.
But to that
point,
point, though,
I have the article on the CDC that says, guess what? We actually don't know how it spread. There's still questions remain. It's on the CDC website, and it's a study out of, I believe China, where they say we actually don't know. But that's not talked about because people rather say, hey, we know it's water droplets. Yeah. Actually, it seems to be fine aerosolized particles. And these are so fine that masks do not seem to have an impact. It's the same. It's the same size as influenza.
If we don't know how this virus works, then how the hell is there how the hell is there's a vaccine? How is there a vaccine that is successful, that is very successful, if we don't know how this virus works? That makes no sense. You have to know a virus before you're going to do a vaccine.
Something about,
that's the thing. This is the problem with the libertarian ideology. It's always, just live it.
Who cares about me? Who cares about me?
Yeah.
Who cares about my life more than me?
Listen, Kyle,
who cares
wearing
about my
a mask
mom more
is
than
not
me?
an infringement of your freedom, okay? Wearing a mask is not, you're not oppressed.
Absolutely, that's
you're
ridiculous.
Not being oppressed because
that
you're wearing
ridiculous.
a mask.
You telling me what to wear is crazy.
Yeah,
wow,
okay, well, you know what?
Me what to wear by the data.
I'd rather
if the data is suggestive.
Where 2 million Americans
clearly do not have that data
because you don't want to wear a mask
right next to each other. The idea that mask work is insane.
But guess what? We know how this virus works. There's a vaccine for it. You need to stop perpetuating these lies. Okay, we know how this virus works. Okay, Nick's audience, our audience deserves the truth that when you wear a mask, you can limit the spread of this virus. All right. You're not oppressed because you wore a mask.
No, because first of all, we have the counter data to that. All the RCTs come back and say, guess what? Under scrutiny, this doesn't work. We don't see a statistical detectable benefit that it stops the spread. And that's the creme de la creme. So no, we do not have that data. I think it's on the opposite. I think you people are lying to yourselves.
Okay, we're going to move to Rocco. Rocco, I need your last point. The audience deserves to hear it from all of us. What is your final point in all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to quickly respond to a few factual points that were made because with all due respect to Rez, he keeps talking about this in terms of libertarian ideology, but his stance simply does not align with the science. He says that this was done because 1 year ago we were told that we could slow the spread, and that was a failure of the Trump administration. But we know that COVID was here in December. We now know that as a matter of fact, we have the lab data to have shown it. So we could not have stopped this. Secondly, Dr. Fauci said that there is no reason to be walking around wearing a mask because, quote, though it may block a droplet, it isn't providing you with the proper protection that you think you are getting. This implies directly that masks do not slow the spread of COVID, which is, of course, true. He was telling the truth, since this is an aerosolized virus. And furthermore, healthcare workers wear KN95 masks, not cloth masks. And we are saying now that any mask is okay. A neck gaiter is okay. Putting, just a regular piece of cloth over your face is okay. So if he was right that wearing a mask is so important, he unjustifiably killed a whole bunch of people at the height of this spread, and he forfeited any moral authority that he had, and that's if you believe he was correct. Fortunately, he was wrong. Masks don't work. We have known for years that you
that's
do
just
not
not
wear
true.
A cloth mask.
Let me quote the CDC, please. Let me quote the CDC. Let me quote the
CDC.
CDC. This was an article on the CDC. Let me quote them. Let me quote them.
I gotta get through my answer here.
Okay, go ahead. But let me quote the CDC when you're done.
But, come on.
Go ahead, Rocco.
We know for a fact, for people who have worked in real estate, for people who worked in construction, that if you work with asbestos, that you are told that you do not wear a cloth mask for asbestos because the micron size of the asbestos particle is too small for the cloth mask to be effective in blocking it. The average micron size, or the average size of a asbestos particle is 5 microns. The average size of a COVID particle is 0.1 microns. This is public health theater. And that's why you have more spread in New York than you've ever had. That's why you have more spread, or rather in any other state, not than you've ever had. Though you did have more spread in January with universal masking or near universal than you did in April with no masking. So I'll just end by saying that it doesn't work because of the aerosolized transmission. We've had one randomized control trial on masks. It was done in Denmark. It showed that there was no benefit to the wearer. There has been no randomized control trial for the benefit to the person who is opposite of the wearer. So we really have no hard clinical evidence on that question. And on the question of whether it works for the wearer, the one little bit of evidence that we have says that it doesn't work. So I'll just leave you with this. If these mitigation efforts worked, we were told by Neil Ferguson 1 year ago today that 2.2 million Americans were going to die if we didn't take the kind of mitigation efforts that he was saying that we needed to take. If we, quote unquote, did nothing, then that was what would happen. Well, that's exactly what they did in South Dakota. That didn't happen. That's exactly what they did in Sweden. That didn't happen. And when the left pivots to arguments about how they had somewhat relatively worse outcomes than their neighbors, when we are told they're going to have exponentially worse outcomes, that should tell you that their argument is not based in facts, and it never has been.
For the benefit of our audience, we need to end the conversation here.